Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do. Trump making some more wild comments about Epstein and trashing his own supporters. We've also got some reaction to that. Alex Jones is now wondering if MAGA maybe is in fact a cult.
He is asking.
He's going through it. We'll share that with you. We've also got some interesting polling from some Republican pollsters in particular about how people are feeling about all of this. We have some very significant international news. Israel bombing Damascus, an extraordinary escalation there, really wild situation, complete psyop effectively. We'll break it all down for you, what led to this and what they're saying. Trump is flirting with firing the Fed chair, apparently brought a bunch of Republicans in, reportedly even drafted a letter, but Jerome Powell remains in place as of right now. Zohran Mamdani sits down with business leaders in New York. Some interesting reaction to that. New York Times, total whiff on another Democratic primary. This is kind of a funny and enraging story all in one. And we're going to have Michael Tracy join us for a little debate on whether or not Epstein was an Intel asset. I'm going to play the neutral moderator. Obviously, I'm on your side, but I'm going to try to play the neutral moderator, so it's just a one-on-one rather than stacking the deck against Michael Tracy. But that should be a good one. He's been going in.
I like Michael. I personally think that he's being a contrarian for the sake of it, but we will keep it respectful and we will make it so that look. I just want to lay out the case, and I'll have him respond to what that case is. Personally, I think he's arguing against a lot of straw men. But before we get to that, thank you to everybody who's been signing up and supporting us at BreakingPoints.com. We've got a lot of people coming in on the Epstein story, which we are very, very glad to have you. We're doing as much work on this as we possibly can, and it is great to be back here at the desk. We got some interesting stuff that's coming up. I was on the Flagrant podcast with Andrew Schultz. I think the podcast drops at some point today. And actually, I also filmed something with the Flagrant guys, interviewing them about reflections on the Trump interview, promises, some of their criticism, etc. And so that will be dropping later on, and that, of course, will be dropping first for our premium subscribers. So if you want to watch that, you can go ahead, breakingpoints.com.
Very excited to see all of that.
Yeah, it'll be fun. All right, let's go ahead and start with the Epstein story. So Trump is, at this point, what is it? Quintupling down? Quintupling down. I think quintuple is the factor, the math factor that we're in right now. Basically trashing his own supporters, saying everybody that is interested in the story is stupid, is that they are falling for a Democratic plan, is that the files, to the extent that they ever existed, were actually an Obama hoax. Here's what he had to say.
He's dead, he's gone, and all it is the certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook. And no different than Russia, and all the other hoaxes. They're started by the Democrats. By the way, I think the biggest scandal, that's the scandal they should be talking about, not Jeffrey Epstein. The scandal you should be talking about is the auto pen, because I think it's the biggest scandal, one of them in American history. I lost a lot of faith in certain people. Yeah, I lost, because they got duped by the Democrats. The Democrats are good for nothing. They've done a terrible job. They almost destroyed our country.
Would you consider appointing a special counsel to investigate the Jeffrey Epstein investigation?
I have nothing to do with it.
So that last part is very important. First of all, basically saying it's an Obama hoax and I had nothing to do with it. Initially, there was some MAGA cope basically saying, oh, don't worry, he's going to appoint a special prosecutor. Seems to be, basically drifting very far away from that. But I mean, we got to combine this really with the actual Truth Social post that he made yesterday, which really, really trashed a lot of his supporters. Let's put this up there on the screen. Here's what he writes, quote, "The radical left Democrats have hit pay dirt again, just like the fake and fully discredited Steele dossier, the lying 51 intelligence agents, laptop from hell, which the Dems swore had come from Russia. No, it came from Hunter Biden's bathroom. And even Russia scam itself, a totally fake and made-up story used in order to hide crooked Hillary's big loss in the 2016 election. These scams and hoaxes are all the Democrats are good at. It's all they have. There's no good at governing." Okay, I'm going to continue now. "Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and my past supporters have bought into this bullshit," in quotes, hook, line, and sinker. "They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic left for the 8 long years. I've had more success in 6 months," etc. And he continues, what does he say? "These people want to talk about with strong prodding by the fake news and the success-starved Dems is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success. I don't want their support anymore. Thank you for their attention to this matter. Make America great again." So he talks about his, quote, past supporters have poured into this bullshit about how he doesn't want their support anymore. And I mean, look, the guy's making it as clear as it gets, right? And I think, again, you know, the reason why all this stuff kind of matters, been talking about it all week, is that the Prism of Epstein was one in which, you know, Trump successfully, I would say he seized on that along with a lot of the MAGA movement to show everybody how it was outsiders versus insiders. And it was very important, right? Because it fit with the deep state and, you know, the prosecutions that were against him. And it was really like, you know, they're not coming after me, they're coming after you. And these very, very high level people in power. And it was like talking about corruption, and it revealed really in which the way the world worked and how they, the, you know, quote unquote MAGA and the Trump movement and all of that was like this renegade band of outsiders coming in to destroy. And then really what you watch is like the complete flip that happens in their rhetoric and just becoming, you know, new boss the same as the old boss. So I really can't think I can overstate like how important that prism is. Like no one is saying that this is the most important thing, but when you put it all together, when you put, you know, the Iran strikes, the Ukraine policy, the tax bill, so much of the way governance is happening. I mean, look, if you're MAHA or whatever right now, I'm not sure if people know this, RFK Jr. just approved the Moderna vaccine for 6 months old. So I don't see a lot of MAHA people calling him out.
And there's like a big shakeup over there too. Like,
they just fired his chief of staff,
to be
right?
honest with you.
Yeah, the biggest win they have is that people can now drink cane sugar Coke. So congratulations, diabetics. You can now actually drink a can of Coke with 10 more grams or 10 more calories in it. Congratulations to everybody, because apparently that is a great MAHA victory. The other one is they got artificial dyes out of ice cream, because I didn't know that was the problem with ice cream, is that artificial dyes, Crystal, are the problem in ice cream, not the shitload of sugar that are in it that people are eating.
Just like one brand.
Yeah, it's like, come on, okay? The steak and shake fries, which by the way I checked, have more calories. The beef tallow shake and shake fries have more calories per serving than McDonald's fries. Now I'm gonna have all the seed oil bros in the comments. I don't care, okay? I'll eat the McDonald's fries and the Diet Coke and all of that in the same amount, you know, and we'll compare our calorie content, and then we'll check, everybody, we'll take blood work and we'll look at our weight. I will guarantee you're gonna be fatter and more disgusting if you continue to buy into this stuff. But my point is just like, if you look at all of these things, all these promises, all of this like renegade type behavior from the DOJ to MAHA to all of this like insurgency, like I'm not seeing a whole lot of, you know, like real groundbreaking stuff that's happening right now. And I do think that this is beginning to erode some of Trump's support in some of these disparate coalitions. I will not sit here and say MAGA grandmas are abandoning Donald Trump. That's ridiculous, and that's just not really how it works. But, you know, you didn't win some popular vote and some tens of millions of votes on the backs of MAGA alone. There's millions of people, specifically young people and all those as well, who really did buy into a lot of this vision because they were very upset about the direction of the cultural left. And now I think that they're very much up for grabs. So it's a big political opportunity. I think it's just very interesting, you know, to see the way that this shakeout of the last 2.5 months has been, in my opinion. I thought Doge would kill Trump, like really politically, but I actually think it's the Iran strike forward that has eroded so much of what people saw in this person. And now, like, the direction is pretty damn clear. You know, your first 200 days or whatever are over. In general, nobody really does anything after this point as president. You're basically just managing more international crises, which worked out well the first time. So I think we can see the direction, you know, that the plane is pointed towards.
Iran, Ukraine, Epstein.
Yeah,
all in just the past several weeks.
2 months.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, if you thought that he was going to make good on those promises of no new wars and, you know, we're going to end the Ukraine war and we're going to release the files, you've got to, this has been certainly head spinning. I do want to just pause on what he's actually saying here, because it's easy to just be like, oh my God, this guy is insane and he's just like saying all this wild stuff. But he is now consistently asserting that there are Epstein files. Remember, you know, the memo they put out and said there is no incriminating client list, case closed, it's over, we're moving on. Well, he's indicating there are files, but they were created by his enemies. And so they're a hoax. And it's hard to read that in any other way than he is sort of laying the groundwork to give himself an excuse if things come out that do point to him in connection with Jeffrey Epstein. And the bottom line is he's acting so guilty. And there's really no other explanation that makes sense for the insane way that he's behaving here. Slamming his own supporters, saying, hey, I don't even want your support if you're interested in this, and daring them to defy him. Now, some of them are already going along with it. We watched this interview that John Solomon did with him where he's not on, oh, yeah, definitely. The Democrats definitely rigged it, against you, and they're definitely inventing things against you. So plenty of people and influencers will actually go along with this line. We'll see how many will ultimately buy it. But it seems very much like he is laying the groundwork to try to inoculate himself against potential damaging information coming out. So that's number one. And number two, as I've been going back through, I know you've been going back down the rabbit hole and I've been looking into, okay, well, what are all the Trump Epstein connections? And one of the things that I stumbled upon yesterday is this is sort of thing you're like, how is this not common knowledge? It was written up in a British tabloid, actually the tabloid that Ghislaine Maxwell's father had once owned before he died under also mysterious circumstances, wrote up that Trump at age 51 was dating a 20-year-old who he had been introduced to by Ghislaine Maxwell, who it later came out had been an underage trafficking victim of Jeffrey Epstein. Trump dated that woman. And this piece also said that this was not the first woman that Ghislaine Maxwell had introduced him to. I mean, you go back and you look at the quote where Trump says infamously, I knew Jeffrey for 15 years. He likes beautiful women maybe as much as I do, many on the younger side. You can't tell me this man who was a fixture at Epstein parties in Manhattan, who was practically his next door neighbor down in Palm Beach, who Virginia Giuffre worked at Mar-a-Lago. That's where Ghislaine Maxwell met her. You can't tell me he didn't know what's going on, because there were all sorts of whispers and rumors in these circles about exactly what was going on, because he wasn't exactly discreet about it. So when you think about that, then you start to think, oh, interesting that Trump owned these, beauty pageants and bragged about going into the dressing room where the girls were getting dressed. Oh, interesting, he owned a modeling agency, which are known to be hothouses of underage exploitation and abuse. And then you see the way he's behaving here and the way he's trying to give him some sort of out if there is damaging information that comes out. I don't know, guys. Y'all can draw whatever conclusions you want to draw, but the lines are all pointing in one particular direction. And last thing, Saagar, I'll get you to react to this. Megyn Kelly said something interesting too, and Emily actually pointed this out, and I didn't really fully wrap my head around it when she said it. Megyn Kelly said, I have insiders who are telling me that the files were all set up to point directly to Trump. Now, I guess there's a couple ways you could read that. One is just Trump's guilty. Another is she's also trying to indicate the Democrats set him up. They rigged these files and inserted fake information about Donald Trump, as if they, if they were going to do that, they wouldn't release that before he got reelected.
Well, and also, if that is true, then you can prove that that is true and be like, look, they, here's the paper trail of where things originally were. Or, you could do a retrospective and you could, quote, make the files more fulsome. But yeah, listen, all of that is public record, basically. I didn't know about the 20-year-old thing, but the rest of it, it's all of it was kind of baked in. It's yeah, Trump is a sleazy old man. That was basically baked into the public consciousness. I think everybody was willing to be okay, well, at this point, it's pretty clear track record of behavior, the divorces, the tabloid behavior, etc. But his behavior over the last week or so has a lot of people being hey man, I don't know, this really could be it shows you something. There's a real, there may be something there. And at the very least, it's a cover-up of some kind. For what purpose? It could be personal. I personally think a lot of it is intelligence-related. When you combine, and it could be a combination of both. I don't know. The intel stuff just makes a lot more sense to me, considering just the rabid pro-Israel direction that we're going in right now.
Yeah, but that would make even more sense if they have something on him.
Yeah,
and that's why anybody who tells you oh, this is a side show and this isn't important and people care about the price of eggs. Of course, people care about other things, no doubt about it. And, we're covering other stories in the show. There are other things going on in the world. If Mossad has pedo blackmail material on the President of the United States, I think we should know that. I think that's probably a pretty important thing to know. So, no, we can't just dismiss this story out of hand, especially after the way that Trump has responded to this in such a bizarre and inexplicable fashion, and is now seems to be explicitly laying the groundwork to have some sort of excuse if something bad does ultimately come out. And let's also not forget that Steve Bannon apparently said previously, going into 2016, that Jeffrey Epstein was the one person who he thought could nuke Trump's presidential ambitions.
There you go. All right, let's go and put the Elon Musk thing up there on the screen. Reply from Elon. Here's what he had to say. Quote, the old, admit nothing, deny everything, make counterclaims, but it won't work this time. And quote, wow, amazing, Epstein killed himself and Ghislaine is in federal prison for a hoax. By the way, Ghislaine's legal team has been citing the government's actions and appealing the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn her conviction. So that's great. Really, congratulations.
And
great work by the U.S. government.
Directly to Trump.
Yes. I mean, she's
Directly
like, hey, you said it's a hoax. So if it's a hoax, then why am I serving 20 years in federal prison? Great question, isn't it? Let's also get to Alex Jones and some of the, basically dissident, I don't know what you would call it, but people are speaking out and basically saying, okay, Trump, if this is the way that you want to play it, then I'm basically out with you. Here's what Alex Jones had to say. He says, I'm not in a cult.
You people that bring this up don't even deserve to be involved in this movement. You are excommunicata. You are henceforth ex cathedra from the mouth of the God King. You are expelled from the Church of the Holy Golden Toad, Donald John Trump. Well, I was never in the Church of the Holy Golden Toad. I do like you being a maverick, standing up for the country. We have the same enemies. I respect your stamina and courage. Been a big cheerleader when I agree with what you're doing. But if I'm being excommunicated, let me be clear, I was never in your church to be excommunicated. So you can't excommunicate me because I was never in your church. I was never in a cult. And I never said MAGA was a cult. I said a lot of people want it to be a cult.
I was never in a cult, basically calling Trump out, saying, listen, you're like some great God emperor. I mean, in some ways, like, Alex is correct in terms of it was never presented necessarily as a cult, but like, let's be honest about the way this politically has ended up working out and the way operationally it is. I don't know did you guys cover the Ukraine thing yesterday? The poll, which was like when told Trump's decision.
Oh, no, we didn't cover.
This is amazing. Just so people know, this is a new Echelon Insights poll, and it was MAGA voters when asked if they said, do you support sending more arms to Ukraine? The original answer was like the vast majority no. Then when told Trump supports it, it's Trump's decision, 65% were like yes. I was like, okay, so you actually are in a cult because
we saw the Iran numbers.
And this is where everything surrounds the whole like trust the plan. Like they genuinely only trust Donald Trump. There's no really getting around that. But I just want to caution again everybody, and there's a lot of Republicans who are like, look, he can do anything and he can get away with it. I just don't think that that is true at a macro level. And there are a lot of people who are now talking about how Republicans are going to take an absolute beating in the midterms. They probably were going to anyways, even if this was a decent, right enough administration, just because of the way that political cycles work. But now you're really setting it up for demoralization. And it's not, again, not the base, but these lower propensity voters who crawled out of the woodwork to vote for Donald Trump. So many people voted in the last election, never even voted before. Those types of people who were brand new Republicans, and there's always an opportunity every time some candidate is able to bring those people out and then actually convert them into like sustained parts of your political base, they're not coming back, for a variety of reasons. I think Epstein is actually a decent enough reason for one of them, and it connects to so many different tentacles in our foreign policy. But yeah, how is Fox News and other people spinning it? They're like, well, actually, the auto pen scandal.
That's the real
scandal. So Trump is like, hey, we need to move on. There's little girls who are dead in Texas. How dare you ask me about Epstein? And that's why the auto pen scandal involving the last president, that's actually the biggest scandal in American history. Let's take a listen from Fox News.
If you care about the Constitution and the rule of law, Trump is right. The auto pen is way more serious than Jeffrey Epstein, because you could have a series of aides here who seized the power of the presidency and used it for their own purposes.
Way more serious than Jeffrey Epstein. By the way, for all of our younger viewers, if you don't know who John Yoo is, John Yoo is the guy who was in the Bush White House, who authored all of the infamous torture memos and executive privileges for George W. Bush to expand his authority basically to the levels of a king. So in case you're wondering about constitutionality and the love
expert
of
on the rule of law there.
Yeah. 20 years ago, John Yoo was a household name amongst a lot of Americans because they're like, hey, fuck this guy, just so people know who it is. So yeah, just laying that out there in terms of who they... It's amazing to me how you can whitewash your reputation and 20 years, after authoring these memos and being like a legitimate pariah in American society. And you can, bring your way back and say, hey, by the way, actually the AutoPen scandal is a much bigger scandal than the Epstein thing. I mean, the AutoPen thing, sure, okay, let's talk about it. To the extent that it matters, it's really not about the AutoPen itself, it's about Biden's senility. I'm fine with that. Okay, fine. Let's, Biden's doctor, pleaded the fifth whenever he was before Congress. I agree. That's a huge problem. I'm totally on board. But, in the words of Laura Loomer, who we're about to show up soon, you can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah.
The Epstein one actually does seem a lot more urgent for today, considering all of its foreign policy implications.
True.
Don't see a lot of people talking about that.
It's one of the first times I really have seen the right and Trump specifically try and fail to change the subject. Usually they're very good at this. They have their media machine. The AutoPen thing's going to be a scandal. We're just going to go in and get people to care about this, and it just hasn't really worked out. So anyway, you've got that going on. I wanted to run something by you that I mentioned to Emily yesterday, I think it was. This moment for Trump and the way he's asking his base to completely repudiate something they believed 5 seconds ago, the thing it reminds me of most is actually the grab her by the P word moment. Because think at that time, you had these evangelical right Christians who were in the tent, who were a little leery of Trump anyway, Mike Pence on the ticket, and this comes out. And he's asking them to turn on a dime from all of their outrage about Bill Clinton getting a blowjob in the White House and being the moral majority and family values, blah, 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 to turn on a dime and say, nope, this is locker room talk and we don't care. Yeah. And you know what? They did. They did. Now, there are some things that are different today. Number one, the media ecosystem is different. His coalition is a little bit different.
Very different, yeah.
And he is potentially, maybe, a lame duck, depending on whether he tries for his third term or whatever happens there. So there also may be people who are looking past him and thinking there's going to be a post-Trump Republican Party. So that could create a situation that is different. But, that is, to me, what rhymes the most with this moment, where he is asking his own base to completely throw out the window long-held core beliefs just to back him up and go along with him. It's almost like a test, the way that was.
The only reason I think it's a little bit different is that, well, first of all, at that time, he basically had something that he could offer them that nobody else would offer, where he literally said, I'm going to appoint pro-life justices to the Supreme Court and overturn Roe versus Wade, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty different, in my opinion. Also, it's a little different as well because the MAGA...
he's offering them cane sugar and the Coke.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's not the same thing. That was their... Look, I mean, at that time, I know it's been a while, that was their number one priority. That's the only thing that a lot of these people voted on was pro-life. That's it. So that doesn't really exist this time around. They can't offer them the same type of thing. Even then, I would say, if you look at the MAGA coalition of 2016, the evangelicals were a small minority of it. They were not the MAGA base. They were the people who came over and were reluctant to come in. Most of it was working class whites who thought the whole story was stupid and bullshit. So I would put it a little bit differently. The Epstein thing, the reason why I think it's different is, look, it's also been a long time since that. When was that story? 2016? So it's been 7 years, right? So since that broke, the internet is pop culture now. It was then, but it is way more.
Now, yeah.
It's just different. And that's part of the reason why I've been getting annoyed when people are like, oh, in the real world and all of that. I'm like, guys, the internet actually is the real world to a certain extent in terms of this is the media now. This is where public consumption is on TikTok, it's on Instagram, it's on YouTube. I can guarantee you this is one of the most viral stories that I have seen in years. And that not just on this platform, on every platform.
Yeah.
And, actually, my interview with Tucker has more views than the Iranian president. That's what I'm trying to give people an example of. I've literally never seen. I got people reaching out to me who I haven't spoken to in 10 years, about this. My point is just that this is capturing the attention of the country. Would I claim that it is, the number one issue or any of that? Again, absolutely not. But, in the same way that you're cartoonishly asking people to move on. And it's also, the other key and the difference is that was before an election. election. That's when shit's on the line. It's between Hillary and Trump. He's got 3.5 more years to go. In a certain way, people who are speaking out are like trying to have a corrective and a push on the administration. So it's actually more like a power struggle in terms of like who gets to set the agenda and who doesn't, as opposed to, look, we have two choices. Sometimes you just got to hold your nose and vote for somebody, like a lot of people also did for Hillary. But yeah, I mean, that's not a terrible comparison. I would really I'm trying to think of anything else, and I can't really, because at the same time, you know, he ran on releasing it. And it's not just him running on it, it's the entire MAGA apparatus.
Right.
And
Because
that's what makes it so stark.
If you listen to him,
right, he never cared that much.
He was always very squirrely.
Yes.
And that Fox News edit is now infamous, where the way they edited his response to will you release the Epstein files was just, yeah. But then he goes, yeah. Well, maybe less so. And then he goes on to give a bunch of privacy, and I'm concerned about this and that and the other, of why he actually probably wouldn't. And he was like, every time he got asked about it, he was squirrely in the same way. But there is no doubt that he flirted with, you know, all of those conspiracies, including the QAnon conspiracy, which was sort of like, you know, adjacent to this. That was like the bullshit made up version, you know.
QAnon was way dumber.
Of course. Yeah, that goes without saying. But it all becomes, you know, like this idea of Pizzagate, QAnon, Jeffrey Epstein all gets lumped together as like, oh, elite pedophiles, mostly Democrats, are like running the world. And he flirted with all of this stuff. And so he certainly gave people the impression that he was going to be on their side in this. He was going to be the person, the white knight, to ride in and expose all of the, you know, criminals and bring them to justice, whatever. And then people in his movement, like Dan Bongino, like Kash Patel, like J.D. Vance, they were very explicit about the files are going to be released and this is going to be a major priority. And
well, he was explicit too. He said it, I think it was in his Lex Fridman interview. He's like, yeah, I'm going to release all of it. He literally said that. I mean, you know, like there's multiple clips of Trump, so the president, the vice president, the FBI director, the deputy FBI director, the attorney general of the United States, multiple, I mean, I can't even think of the rest of the Trump surrogates, if you think about that, like people directly involved in the campaign. Come on now. Like that's part of what makes this so galling.
Well, and the people who, to your point, who are like, oh, this is in real life, nobody cares about this. Are you kidding me?
Totally
Americans don't care about some grand sex scandal involving potentially the president of the United States. You don't think they don't care about that? Have you met Americans and their tabloid?
Were you alive in 1998?
Their tabloid sensibility? I think they care. I think they're interested. I think you've got their attention.
Right. If Lewinsky captured Lewinsky was the biggest story in the country for like 18 months, just so everybody remembers. And also, a little Lewinsky callback, if we all remember, when Bill Clinton got into a war with Serbia to distract the country from the Lewinsky scandal. So these actually can have some pretty big ramifications, just saying.
Before we go on to the other MAGA, I just want to mention that, you know, one more item to put on the list of strange things that are happening in the Trump administration. They just fired the Manhattan prosecutor who handled the Jeffrey Epstein and the Ghislaine Maxwell case. Now, this is Moren Comey, so it's actually Jim Comey's daughter. Yeah. So, in fairness, this is someone MAGA has hated, and she also just handled the Diddy trial rather poorly as well. Yeah. But you still have to ask why she's getting fired now when she's the one who handled both Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein's cases. She was the prosecutor.
I agree that the timing is weird. It's what I told you. I was like, to be fair, like MAGA has hated her for years. They're like, this lady needs to be fired from the Department of Justice. And the Diddy trial is like the best excuse. It's like you totally, you botched the entire case and with the biggest charges against him. You would also say, I mean, if you look at not only the charges of Epstein, but really against Ghislaine Maxwell in the SDNY, like that, in my opinion, is more part of the cover-up than anything else.
Yes.
Because the way that the case was set up was so that it only implicated Maxwell and Epstein and not everybody else. And they focus on these charges from like 1994 or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think she's innocent, in all of this. But by the way, hey, Maureen, her name's Maureen, right? Yeah, Maureen, you're free now. All right, come, let's talk. Let's give some interviews. All right, don't just shut your mouth and become a resistance hero. If you have some information, tell us what you learned about the pressure from inside of the Justice Department. Won't hold my breath. Last thing here is just about kind of some of the MAGA reaction. Let's go and put this up there on the screen. So we got people like Laura Loomer. She's, of course, standing with Trump. She says Epstein is one issue of many. It's wild to me how many people can't walk and chew gum at the same time. You can ask for answers on Epstein while also not allow it to consume the only thing that you speak about. Trump is doing many great things on a daily basis. He knows how to walk and chew gum at the same time. But let's continue because there are some other examples examples here. People actually, pushing back pretty hard. Here you got General Mike Flynn, who is a former national security advisor. He says this is where his argument went off the rails. It is not about Epstein or the left. It's about committing crimes against children. If he were part of an intel operation known or run by CIA, shame on them, and those responsible must be held accountable. If there's any other country involved, then shame on them as well. If there are elites inside of our country that committed crimes against children, shame on them, and they must be held accountable. Let's go to the next, just to show people. You got some various different like MAGA influencers and others. Here you have Trisha Hope. She says, he just called supporters like me stupid who spent 10 years standing with him through thick and thin. This is what he has to say. Well, maybe he is right, because I feel pretty dumb for standing with him all those years, and I won't be doing it again. Hashtag Epstein cover-up. Let's go to another one here. This is from Evan Kilgore. I've been a loyal Trump supporter since 2016. I lost job, friendships, been smeared online, doxxed, pressed charges on people who have stalked and harassed me for supporting him. If Trump doesn't want my support because I care about the Epstein files, then I'm done. Bye. So you can see, look, again, that's something. I'm not, ready to say yet it's like some gigantic civil war or any of that, but it is certainly having some impact in support for the president. And nonetheless, it's consuming all of tabloid media and of political media at a time when you really would want your attention focused elsewhere. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.